Hello, my name is Cardwell, and I'm going to discuss the festival of St. Patrick's Day. We're going to talk a little bit about St. Patrick's Day in Ireland and the festivals and the celebrations that they do there. And then we're going to talk about the celebrations and the festivals that we do here in the United States and compare those. We're going to talk about some food of the Irish, the history of St. Patrick himself, and learn a few little interesting facts that I know I didn't know, and I'm sure many of you didn't know either. Have you ever felt the luck of the Irish? Well, everyone's Irish on March 17th, right? I mean, we all celebrate and wear green and pinch others that aren't wearing green. Well, what if I told you that St. Patrick wasn't Irish? Well, actually, that's very true. The man who's the reason behind St. Patrick's Day, St. Patrick himself, wasn't Irish at all. He was actually from Britain. So let's learn a little about St. Patrick and figure out how he became the role model behind the reason behind St. Patrick's Day when he wasn't even Irish. Well, Patrick was born in 385 AD in Britain. His parents were very religious people, and Patrick himself, it's recorded that he wasn't a real religious boy and didn't really have any kind of relationship with any kind of God or anything. But at age 16, things quickly changed when he was kidnapped and sold as a slave in Ireland to work as a herdsman. And it was actually during this time that he surrendered his life to God. In his 6th year of slavery, he was able to escape and he returned home. And after a dream he had, he decided to dedicate his life to his religious work and returned to Ireland to do so. He said he would take his faith back to the people of the land in which he found the true God. So he studied and he prepared for 18 years. And it took so many years because he had been in slavery for 6 years and he was behind on his schooling and education. But after those 18 years that he studied and prepared, he returned to Ireland and he spent 30 years there. And that was the remainder, pretty much the remainder of his life. Thousands of Irishmen were converted after hearing Patrick speak. And now, St. Patrick's Day is celebrated annually, March 17th. This is the anniversary of St. Patrick's death. Well, did you know that the first parade held for St. Patrick's Day wasn't held in Ireland? Well, it's true. The first parade held to honor St. Patrick's Day was in the U.S. The first parade was held in New York City, where Irish soldiers serving in the English military marched through New York City, and this was on March 17th of 1762. St. Patrick's Day in Ireland began as the Feast of St. Patrick, as a way to honor their heritage and embrace their homeland. The day saw the lifting of Lent restrictions because this day, the Feast of St. Patrick, was during the Lent, so they lifted the restrictions of Lent on this one day to give the Christians a day to eat and drink as much as they wanted in celebration of the Feast of St. Patrick. And here I've attached a couple pictures. These are more present day, obviously, pictures of parades in Ireland for St. Patrick's Day. So here's a little comparison to kind of make it a little more simple and see how significant St. Patrick's Day is to Ireland. St. Patrick's Day to them is like our 4th of July for America. The festivities are often the same of how we celebrate. You know, for 4th of July, a lot of us have cookouts and we have food and drinking and parades and games, and we spend time with our family and our friends. And that's a lot of what St. Patrick's Day is in Ireland parades and food, games, family time. No beer on St. Patrick's Day? Well, this was an interesting fact. Drinking beer or any alcohol on St. Patrick's Day was not part of the original holiday practices. Actually, pubs in Ireland were forced to shut down by law on the holiday until the 20th century, and drinking on St. Patrick's Day was highly frowned upon until the late 1970s. But thanks to a marketing push from Budweiser in the 80s, we now drink on St. Patrick's Day, and many people now use the holiday to drink and get drunk. So thanks, Budweiser. I thought since I discussed the traditions and celebrations of St. Patrick's Day in Ireland, that it would be nice to discuss the traditions and celebrations here in America, so we could kind of compare those and compare and kind of contrast, but they're a lot similar to each other, actually. So to celebrate in America, we have certain foods sometimes that people eat that are Irish foods. We have parades here, and we often drink green beer or some Irish whiskey. And actually, we dye the Chicago River, which was something I did not know that we did here in America. I've never heard it, and I've never heard about it. And really, Kentucky's not far away from Chicago, so you think I would have known that we did that here in America to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. But the best parades in the U.S., we have a lot of parades, but the two best and the biggest ones are in Boston and New York. And then, like I said, dyeing the Chicago River, we do that because it marks as a respect to the true Irish spirit. People often drink, as I said, and then Irish foods. I've got pictured here are Irish beef stew and a Irish soda bread. And then I don't have this other one pictured, but shepherd's pie is another one of the actual Irish food that sometimes Americans eat in celebration of St. Patrick's Day. Corned beef and cabbage. These are common foods to eat on St. Patrick's Day. And there's a reason for this. There's a little history behind it. The corned beef and cabbage is because Irish Americans in the 19th century, majority of them were very poor, and the most affordable meat at the time was corned beef. And so people ate corned beef as their meat, and the cabbage was eaten with the corned beef because it was fairly cheap, and it was also a spring vegetable, so it was something they had around at the time. You know, it was available, a spring vegetable available that time of the year. One of these is a shamrock, and one isn't. Can you tell the difference between the two? Can you tell which one's the shamrock and which one's not the shamrock? Well, a shamrock, in simpler terms, is a three-leaf clover. It's a symbol of Irish heritage and culture. And the reason it's associated with St. Patrick's Day is because St. Patrick himself used the shamrock to explain the Holy Trinity. Because it had three leaves on it, three clovers, and he explained the Holy Trinity using the shamrock, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The shamrock can also be used to represent faith, hope, and love. And the shamrock is part of the reason that people often wear green on St. Patrick's Day. Now, a four-leaf clover, different than the shamrock. The difference is, obviously, it's got the fourth leaf on it. And this fourth leaf represents luck, because four-leaf clovers are rare to find. So, if you wear four-leaf clover for St. Patrick's Day, then you're really not wearing the traditional Irish heritage. So keep that in mind the next St. Patrick's Day when you're buying clothes or earrings, like shamrock earrings, don't buy the four-leaf clovers because they are not traditional Irish symbol. Alright, St. Patty's with the D's or St. Patty's with the T's? Which way do you spell it? Well, if you spell it Patty's with the D's, then you're correct according to the Irish. Patty, spelled P-A-T-T-Y, is a nickname for a woman named Patricia. And to the Irish, it's insulting to use the spelling with the T's because, in reference of St. Patrick's Day, because it's a nickname for a woman and St. Patrick was a male figure. Leprechauns. The word leprechaun actually means little body, and it describes water spirits. Now, leprechauns were said to wear red and gold jackets in the past with pointy red hats, but now we often see them in, the green clothing, all green, and carrying clovers and a green pot of gold. Of course, they're Irish folklore, and they were the first recorded mention of one was in the 8th century. And the job of leprechauns were supposedly to pinch anyone not wearing green. Wear green or blue on St. Patrick's Day? Well, actually, blue was the first color associated with Ireland. St. Patrick was always depicted in blue clothing. If you can see the picture on the right of the slide, that's St. Patrick, and that's kind of an older depiction of him. And newer ones, if you look them up, that he is wearing green, or some of them he's wearing green and blue. But blue was the first color to be associated with Ireland. Well, how did we get to green? I'm sure you're wondering if the color was blue. Well, the color green became the color representative of St. Patrick's Day because of Ireland's nickname, the Emerald Isle. And it was partly due to the green stripe on the Irish flag, which represents the Catholic religion. So, either wear green or you get pinched. Everyone knows that. Now, people pinch others that aren't wearing green on St. Patrick's Day to remind them that the leprechauns will pinch them. Are you feeling lucky? Well, really, there's no luck on St. Patty's Day. I don't see a four-leaf clover. I just see the shamrock. And without the fourth leaf, then there's no luck, because the fourth leaf stands for luck. And here's your faith, hope, love, and luck. But don't forget, this really isn't associated with St. Patty's Day. So what are some of your St. Patrick's Day celebrations? Do you have cookouts with your family and friends? Do you attend parades? Or maybe you go to the bigger parades in New York or Boston. Have you ever been to the Chicago River when they've dyed it green? Have you been there for the dyeing of the Chicago River? Do you eat some of the Irish food? Maybe the beef stew or the soda bread or the shepherd's pie. Or maybe you just like to drink some green beer or some Irish whiskey. And here's a checklist for a successful St. Patrick's Day. You got to remember your green and your shamrock decorated apparel. And remember, no four-leaf clovers, just the shamrock. You have to have green beer, your corned beef and cabbage, and of course, your friends and family to celebrate with. And now you're ready for March 17th of 2018. Thank you for watching my slideshow.